If it's been a while since you wrote an essay, don't worry. The worst that can happen, if it's not quite good enough, we are going to give you some feedback and advice on how to make it better. It's likely that you may have answered most of the questions and you may just have missed a certain part of it. The obvious first bit of advice is to make sure you reread your essay and reread the questions and ask yourself, have you answered them before you submit it? We do recommend that you do a spelling and grammar check on your essay, and you can do this using the built-in Microsoft Word functions. You can or may choose to use a third-party website like Grammarly, which will also give you suggestions on how to improve your text. Be careful though not to use things like AI to actually produce your answers for you or plagiarize other people's work. That is not allowed, and you can check out more information within our malpractice policy. But we do run your essays through software that will detect plagiarism, and it will also detect if AI have produced your answers. So please don't be tempted to do so. We do require you to contextualize your answers to your actual job. If you're a trainer in healthcare, we would expect to see healthcare related examples. When you're talking about legislation, we would expect you to talk about generic legislation such as Health and Safety at Work Act, Equality Act, but you can also mention any industry specific regulations. We try our best to mark your essays within 5 working days. At busy times we may go over that, and sometimes you may have it back the same day. You will see the essays have a recommended word count. That is just a recommendation, so don't worry about hitting it perfectly, and don't worry if you go over it. However, if our recommended word count says 250 words and you only do 50, it's highly unlikely that you've answered the question correctly. So use it as a rough guide to give you an idea of our expectations of how much text is required. If you have any additional learning requirements when it comes to doing your essays, your written work, please contact your tutor and we can talk about alternative methods. We do sometimes get asked, what are the numbers at the end of the question in the essays? This refers to the learning outcomes that you will hit if you pass that question. That is not a reference for you to go looking in the material, so don't get confused with that. For your purposes, you can ignore it. The reason it's at the end of the question is because it shows our awarding body how we have mapped the learning outcomes to the questions. You can access our online library, which has a PDF copy of a workbook and loads of other resources available. You'll also find that link from your training materials. Your online learning account has loads of training resources available, probably a little bit more than you actually need for the course. So you can feel free to dip in and out of that training material as you're answering the questions if you're not quite sure how to answer them. Once your essay has been marked, your tutor will give you feedback via the system. You will be notified by email, and if you do need to resubmit, you just go back to the same place, make your amendments to your essay and re-upload.